Hi, it's Miss Scarrow. We're going to read a passage about photosynthesis next. And typically, I don't read it to you, but in science, sometimes the vocabulary is very, very difficult, especially for students that English isn't their first language, right? So for ELL kids, it can be a little bit difficult. And even kids that struggle to read, if you have words that are 4 or 5 syllables, it can be a little bit daunting. So I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. Listen along, read along, and if you feel that you don't need my help in doing this, then do it yourself. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to stop along the way in this reading a few times. And if you have me in class, you know that I just can't help myself. But I'm going to try to relate it back to what you've already learned in the last couple of days with cells and cell functions. Okay. So this is going to be all about photosynthesis. And some of you have a background from elementary school. So we're going to take what you already know and we're going to build on that. So, believe it or not, there are many similarities between plants and animals. They are both living things and they are made of cells with many of the same organelles that perform the same functions, right? When we did our stuff last week, we realized that most of the organelles were in both cells. There were a couple that were different. Well, this is why they're different. There are, however, some obvious differences between plant and animals. Plants do not breathe with lungs like animals do, but they do undergo the process of taking in carbon dioxide, which we use CO2 as shorthand. So, very often you'll hear it called CO2 in oxygen gas or O2. So, the plants take in carbon dioxide and they expel or give off oxygen. Okay. Well, humans and animals breathe in that oxygen gas and they expel CO2. So we breathe in oxygen, we give out carbon dioxide. Plants take in carbon dioxide, they give off oxygen. Plants are made of plant cells that are box like, usually, and surrounded by a cell wall to support and protect plants that are much more fragile. So remember, we know that they're for protection, the cell walls for protection and for support. One of the major differences between plant cells and animal cells is that plant cells contain special organelles called chloroplasts. The important process of photosynthesis occurs inside each of these chloroplasts. So we know that that's the site of photosynthesis, right? The chloroplast. The chloroplasts contain the green pigment called chlorophyll. So when you're running around outside and you're running around on the grass and you slide and your jeans or your knees come up green as green can be, that green is the pigment called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll molecules trap energy from the sun and use it to transform carbon dioxide, which is CO2, and water, which is H2O, into a simple sugar called glucose. So it undergoes a chemical reaction. It takes carbon dioxide and water and forms glucose. Plants and other living things use glucose as a food source. Oxygen is also produced during photosynthesis. Photosynthesis can be summarized in the chemical equation written like this. Don't be afraid. CO2 is carbon dioxide. H2O is water. You already know that. Those two things come together. There has to be sunlight. If there's no sunlight, it's not going to happen. Undergoes a chemical reaction, and those are called reactants. And so after the chemical reaction is done, what is left is the product. And those are called the products. Very clever. New materials, right? So we start out with water and carbon dioxide, take energy from the sun. What comes out the other end? Glucose, which the plants use as food, and oxygen gas, which they give off as a waste product, right? So in the equation below, you'll see that plants need three major items for photosynthesis. They need carbon dioxide, they need water, and they need energy from sunlight. Those three items combine together to produce glucose, a sugar used as a food source for the plant, and oxygen. Again, this process occurs in the chloroplasts of each plant cell and makes plants very unique compared to animals. Remember, animals cannot undergo photosynthesis. I hope this helps. I hope it clarifies things a little bit for you. You're going to move on to the next activity.